Welcome to Love and Meaning, a podcast. I'm your host, Christelle Robinson-Tiedemann. So I was having this discussion the other day, and it was all about what does it mean to be a good person? Air quotes, good person. And we did not come to the answer, but it sparked all these amazing contemplations in me. And a big one that just had me lit up and juiced up for days is that I came to the realization that the greatest life hack is happiness. Most of my issues in the past came down to me needing external validation for everything. It felt like at the core of me, how I felt about myself in life was not tangible to me internally. I needed external validation. I needed external validation for about what I'm good at, about whether I'm a good person or not, about whether I was worthy. And all of these things were really at the core of all of my problems, in addition to a general dissatisfaction and lack of fulfillment, since I wasn't following my own compass. I truly believe that we are all designed to long for this inner drive, this thing, and there will always be this feeling of something missing until we acknowledge our inner compass. I believe that. So I believe that's where also this dissatisfaction just was there, and a sense of lack of fulfillment, a sense of needing something to be filled within me. And I found myself people pleasing and using living up to other people's standards as my standard. And inevitably, when it didn't work out, I would find myself feeling deeply resentful and bitter. This may be slightly different for other people. I know that my not self theme as a human design projector is bitterness. So for me, this is how it showed up. I had this bitterness and resentfulness about the fact that I was constantly looking outside of myself for what I'm supposed to be or how I'm supposed to be. The disappointment and the resentment and the bitterness was towards myself because I knew on a certain level that I didn't have self-esteem. And people always saw me as confident, but truly, I did not have self-esteem because the validation always had to come from something external. There was also this childlike, that should be a term, childlike. Oh my gosh. But there is this childlike lack of responsibility about my life. And I think at a certain level, I was aware of this. But in my not acknowledging that, I would use blame and this sense of victimization, like, what has the world done to me? What have people done to me? This is why my life looks like that. This is why my life feels like crap. Like, it was all outside of me, right? The the looking for validation was outside of me, and then the also blaming for the problem was outside of me. It was all an externalization. Oh my gosh, when it comes to romantic relationships, like, I had no boundaries, no boundaries. Like, I felt so unstable when I really liked someone. And I would find myself tolerating all kinds of red flags. I can identify them so easily in hindsight now from a different place, but just no boundaries. And again, there's this no self-worth because at the core of it, I knew that I was reliant on that person for how I felt. So it felt like they had all the power. And on a certain level, I was resentful of that. But I didn't realize this whole time that I had given them that power. That power could have always been mine. So overall, all of the issues in my life came down to this overall sense of inadequacy. And therefore I felt like I needed to do all of these things that I just mentioned, because at the basis, at the core of it, was the belief I am not good enough. So in becoming happy, that core belief, I am not good enough, was switched to worthiness was bestowed upon me from the moment I existed. It is a birthright, not something I earn. Or as Melanie Ann Lair says, I'm born worthy and nothing has changed. I love that statement. Like, I'm absolutely perfectly imperfect. I am a freaking miracle existing on a floating rock. Like, this is what the core belief changed to. And that core belief led to awe and wonder about everything, about it all. How I made the mistakes that I've made. Awe and wonder about how I've been the person that I've been for so long, how my parents were raised, how my sibling is different from me, though raised in the same household with the same parents, how we all relate to one another, like how human beings, these amazing creatures, interact the way that they interact, be the way they be, and create the meanings that they create. From this very curious, kind of amazed place, I started to ask, what kind of thoughts and actions and feelings align with a life that feels really, really good? And understanding that led to feeling really, really good. Just like a consistent appreciation of life, a consistent appreciation for life. And from that core place of just an appreciation for life, everything wonderful came. Everything wonderful in my life came from there. So the ultimate hack was going from there. Like, okay, I could have been like, all right, how do I fix my relationships? How do I fix my romantic relationships? How do I fix the people pleasing? How do I fix the fact that I feel like totally unfulfilled in my life? How do I fix the fact that I feel like I'm inadequate and I'm not intelligent? How do I, like, I could have gone at each of these individually. I feel so blessed that whatever happened to me in that extremely low state, because I did find myself in a very deep depression. What I believed happened is that when I was in that very low state in my depression, I had this moment of surrender that I feel like is a little similar to like what Eckhart Tolle and many other spiritual teachers have talked about. That was their spiritual awakening. I believe my spiritual awakening came from an unconscious surrender that just happened all at once. In like, I can't fight this anymore. And in that surrender, the question came to me. And the question was, how do I be happy? And I didn't know the answer. And I'm so grateful for that question, because it was the right question. And that question and the preceding discovery to answering that question led me to the discovery of the code for happiness and finding and feeling appreciation and contentment in my life. Which then from that place, everything else was a simple step forward. And not easy, but I say simple because the bridge was there. Like, you can't actually answer a question you're not asking. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't even mean literally asking the question out loud, but I mean like having an open energy to the answer is what brings it. So when you see that thing on TV or that person recommends that book to you, you don't write it off. You say, ooh, let me read that. Like, that openness. That came from a happy place. So happiness, this happy place it's the bridge to everything. It was the bridge to everything for me. And I can see how it is the perfect launching pad for, I don't think just me, I think for anyone. Like, in having this conversation that sparked all of these contemplations on how to be a good person. I mean, you should have heard it. Like, we there was no consensus. There was it's a beautiful conversation to have with beautiful minds. It was such a gorgeous philosophical conversation, but there was nothing simple about it, like the rights and the wrongs and it's just, I feel like when I think back to myself before when I was younger, it just felt so complicated. Like, it just felt like such a difficult thing to answer. And even now, I feel like with so much awareness and I have a really solid sense of self and purpose and groundedness in this life, again, from this core happy place. And still in this conversation that we're having, like, there's so many avenues, so many buts, so many, it's just the almost impossible to answer question. Yet still, I think so many of us, and I want to say good people, I'm using air quotes because I do believe most people on the planet are that. We can find ourselves led in this direction of, like, okay, the goal is to be a good person, and there's no freaking answer to it. It's different depending on who you ask. So, from this place of happiness, the nitty gritty, the details, the next steps, the what's right for me, the all of it can be intuited from a strong internal stance. I believe that happiness is almost synonymous with connection to internal compass. When I changed the way that I felt about something, I got a very different result. Life started giving me very different results when I changed the way that I felt about it, when I changed the story that I created about it, when I adopted a different energy about things. This worked with people and this works with it, it worked with everything in my life. And I started to notice synchronicities, like the way that I felt. I would act differently when I felt differently. I would act differently. When I was acting differently, I would interact with people differently. When I would interact with people differently in a nicer way, they would respond in ways that were very lovely to me, which would then make me feel very good. So I realized that, oh, so my internal state resulted in a improved external state. And then an improved external state would further improve my internal state. But if my external state was not a certain, was not a sense of perfection, I still had a solid internal state. And then that internal state could eventually lead to, a better external, and vice and on and on and on and on. I would also notice that, like, ask myself, like, if I'm noticing my external state or external environment, like I was noticing things that didn't feel so great, I would go back and ask, okay, what am I feeling on the inside? How is this a match? How is this a reflection? And at a very basic level, I just started to understand this dynamic about how their life responds very much to me. And I became powerful because I felt powerful. I now felt like I had control. I don't have a negative connotation around control. So if anybody has a negative connotation around control, use a different word. But I felt like I had a sense of control in my life. I think everybody wants to feel that for themselves. I felt like I was the master of my life, my destiny, my experience, when before I felt very much the opposite. And from that place, this is the spot, this empowered place. All these other areas of inner work, all these other self discoveries, this deeper journey that I went in self discovery was possible because I wasn't so sensitive. I wasn't so unable to look at what might not be so nice, about my life or in the choices that I made. I was able to because I felt personally empowered. Personal empowerment is really the life hack. Like it's the launching place, but happiness is the place to get there. So there are so many different avenues that I can go with this, and I will definitely start to break down happiness more in different episodes. But there's one more thing that I want to share on this topic, and it is the concept. It's about the concept of self-love, because this is synonymous to me with happiness. I know people share very, very different feelings about um, self-love, but I think it's an important one to mention. It's been really important to me. There are so many planes going by. I hope you guys can't hear that. I don't know why there are like helicopter. It's like plane, helicopter going by my house today. Um, so self-love. So the way that I understand self-love to be is not love about any particular thing about myself. Like it's not about any particular details. Like I love my hair, I love my face, I love my body, I love my personality, I love my smile. It's not, even though I might love any of these things, that's not what I understand self-love to be. The way that I understand self-love to be, and the way that I love myself, when I say I love myself, it's the way that I believe like God or source loves me. The way that you would love a baby, the way that you would love a child, like this unconditional. It has nothing to do with anything that you've done, but simply that you be. I love you. This is what I found in this step into learning law of attraction, learning universal law, finding a core sense of happiness. I gained a love for myself as source would. So just like you look at an innocent child for simply existing, it doesn't matter what they do, just for being, I have this swelling feeling in my heart for every tear I've ever shed, every moment I've felt fear, every moment I felt confusion, for the little girl version of me on the playground trying to figure out how to enter a game, for the version of me that, you know, is in the park on the sand, holding up rocks, sticking rocks in her nose. I used to stick rocks in my nose as a toddler, like only God knows why, but it was like, look, small round thing. Small hole. Fits. Stick it in. Like, I do not know what the mental process was there, but just imagine this creature that does that, that holds this rock and thinks, wow, it fits there, puts it in. Like, there's so much beauty to just that. And I used examples of a child, but like, okay, my adult self, like every time I've felt unsure, every time I was nervous going into a meeting, every time I didn't, like the way that my hair looked that day, or, I had a pimple, or just this objective view of this being trying, just trying to be something in this world, trying to do something in this world, trying to make meaning, trying to make a difference, trying to connect with other people, feeling curious and confused about like, why does the sun come up and go down, and like how did an ocean form, like what are these creatures we call animals? Has anybody seen the deep sea and the fluorescent colored creatures? Like literally black light exists in nature. What? Like, I mean, that awe and wonder that I talked about in the beginning, that feeling, if you can translate that feeling and transfer it into an objective view of you, human being, current evolution of a certain species that once, was Neanderthal, that once, like, just this zoomed out view of us being, trying to make it all matter. My heart swells so much, trying to find love, loving, you know? It's all so beautiful. It's all so beautiful in all the pain, in the worst things in life, like in the reason that we feel like we have to hurt each other, like ultimately the place that all of that comes from, this desperation, this sense of finding a reason for it all. Like, I have this sense of compassion for all of it, myself included. And that is what I call self love. And it doesn't move or change no matter what I do, no matter in the worst place, on my worst day, in my worst moment, when I've said the worst thing, when I'm in the worst mood, and when I'm in the best. That doesn't change. I was created and put here for something. And this isn't even the it's all for a reason thing. It's just that in the fact that I do exist, you do exist in the isness of you, in the isness of me. And I know that I'm going full woo woo and esoteric here. But if you can feel the frequency of my heart right now, my voice right now, if you can connect to what I'm saying when I say the isness of things, there is a beauty that is almost beyond contemplation, and it is accessible to all of us. From that place, everything became more tangible for me. I saw people differently, and I saw myself differently. The ups and the downs, the potential. This is what I mean when I say self-love. If we can tap into feeling for ourselves and for everything the way that Source does, and I do think it's accessible to all of us. I think that meditation is a great way to get closer to that. Silence is a great way to get closer to that. Finding quiet in our mind and just breathing, connecting. Like, do you think about your heartbeat? Do you ever think about your organs? Like, what? We are organically existing things that just function. Like, how does hair grow? How does nails grow? Like, oh my God, it's so amazing. It's so amazing. There's so much power that comes from that place. So, summary. After that whole soapbox, happiness is the greatest life hack and launching place. And I wish it for all of us. And my contribution to the planet, to being here, is to spread the word on that. And that's what I'm doing here with this podcast. So I'm going to definitely start going into happiness a bit more. And I would love for you to be there with me on this journey. I'm wishing everybody a beautiful week. I will see you soon. Catch you in the next one.